Taking the prescribed oath,
No, sir, I don't have any
do you
objection.
swear then that the evidence you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Raise your right hand and say, "So help me God."
So help me God.
Thank you very much. You may be seated.
Thank
Ms. Menye, you've prepared a statement to be submitted to the Commission. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, I have prepared a statement voluntarily to assist the Commission of Inquiry.
Right. Okay, so can we just go through your statement starting from paragraph 3?
Thank you, sir. As indicated earlier on, I am Vuyokazi Charity Menye. I hold a BSc Computer Science degree from the University of the Western Cape, and I graduated at the University of the Western Cape in year 2000. And I have a diploma in IT project management. I have a certificate in COBIT. I have a certificate in ITIL. I have a certificate in TOGAF. I have a regulatory examination certificate for representatives. I have an international investment management certificate from Fordham University in New York, and an electricity regulation certificate from the University of Florida. I am currently completing my MBA degree with the Henley Business School. I am on my last chapter of my dissertation. Thank you, sir.
And continue, paragraph 4.
In terms of my experience in the IT industry, I have over 18 years of experience in the IT industry, that is both in the public and the private sector. And as an executive of IT, I have over 12 years experience as an executive of IT in both private and public sector.
Okay. Now, in relation to your appointment at the PIC, can you just give us some background on how you were appointed, was it through application, how that happened?
Thank you, sir. So it was an interesting one because my husband, Mongezi Menye, applied on my behalf. I was not even aware of a position that was advertised at PIC. He saw it on the newspaper, advertised, and he submitted my CV. I was, surprised.
I hope he had no connections with PIC.
No, he had no connections with PIC at all. I was surprised when I received a call from the HR of PIC indicating that I've been invited for an interview. When I told him about this, he said, actually, he calls me by my clan name, Machezi, it is me who submitted your CV on your behalf at PIC. And I asked, who is PIC? I did not even have an idea who PIC was. And I had to research, he had more knowledge about PIC. And I was excited, I prepared for the interview, went to my first interview session, and the panel was composed of Dr. Dan Machila, Mr. Patrick Mnokola, Dr. Manning, Claudia Manning, and also Mr. Christopher Pulwane. That was the first round of interview. And I did very well in that interview, and I was invited to a second set of interview whereby they requested me to prepare a strategy presentation in terms of what would I do if I were to get the job, at PIC. So I prepared a very nice presentation, and they were actually blown away in the presentation that I presented to them. And immediately, I think a week later, I got a call from Christopher Pulwane indicating that I was successful and I've got the job of being an executive head of IT at PIC.
Okay, so continuing then from your statement, so from the 17th of November 2016, you started at PIC.
Yes, sir. On the 17th of November 2016, I was appointed as the executive head of PIC, of IT at PIC, under the leadership of Dr. Daniel Machila. My role as an executive head of IT in PIC involved, amongst others, the following: interpreting the current and the future positioning of the organization and putting in place effective IT capabilities that will enable the organization to achieve its strategic and operational objectives, in particular achieving the client mandate. It also involved researching, evaluating, and deploying cost-effective IT solutions that will meet the purpose of the business. I was also, as part of my role of being an executive head of IT, responsible for the development and implementation of a PIC information security and risk management strategy that is aligned with the PIC business strategy. This also involved analyzing the internal and external environment and implementing effective information security capabilities and competencies, proper controlled access to prevent information security breaches and data loss that might lead to PIC reputational damage, revenue loss, and staff productivity. So that was my role at PIC.
Perhaps, Ms. Menya, just to ask, would you be more comfortable if we ask the questions at the end, or are you comfortable if we ask you questions ongoing?
Thank you, ma'am. I'm flexible, ma'am.
Okay, because then I would like to perhaps just, given, and obviously I'm sure you have been watching the testimony yesterday, and given that this was your role, how much did you know about what Mr. Maisela was actually doing in using his super access? And the question would be, in bringing somebody on board into an organization, giving the kind of role that he had, and that he was on probation, what were your policies in relation to access to the whole system for somebody who's on probation, just starting out, and so on? Because obviously things happened in a very short period of time, and if this was your role, how much were you aware of, and were there sufficient controls in place to not have what happened happen? And I'm not saying there's right or wrong to it, it's just a question of accessing fully data that could then be, as he put it, taken out and used. So given your role of control within that, with hindsight or with looking at what's happened, how would you evaluate it in relation to that particular responsibility that you've outlined?
Thank you, Commissioner. In terms of IT governance, a senior information security officer in any organization is supposed to be given or is responsible for information security measures, controls and practices in an organization. So what happened is that when Simpiwe joined the organization, I gave him a mandate of defining an information security strategy for the organization, including the information security measures, the principles, and the technologies that we should be putting in place to ensure that we close all the gaps that were there in terms of cybersecurity and information security. This required that Simpiwe would have access on all, the solutions of the organization to enable him to perform an end-to-end assessment of the environment so that he can define an information security strategy and measures and practices and solutions that will talk to the business requirements, the business challenges and opportunities of the environment. So when it comes to super admin access or permission granting, Simpiwe had that permission, and Simpiwe was supposed to be having that access in the environment. I wish to indicate, ma'am, that the super admin access that was given to Simpiwe in terms of the MIMECAS, which is the email archiving solution in the organization, is not only unique to MIMECAS and Simpiwe. All the junior people in the organization that are administering different systems, including the investment systems, which are a core or nucleus of our organization, all of those technical people, junior as they are, they all hold or have permission to super admin, access in order for them to be able to work on the systems or to perform technical requirements and changes and functions on the system. So in order for one to be able to do anything, technically change or improve or modernize, you need those, So there are two different types of access that you give, to a system in order for someone to have access or user used to a system. There's the first access is a user access, whereby you as a user, you'll have access to utilize the system. I'll make an example about an email in Outlook. All of us, I'm sure we are aware of Outlook. If you are going to be a user of Outlook, you will be given a user access. Then, however, when you have to access technical information and technical things, or you have to work on technical functionalities of the Outlook, then you'll have a different access, which is called a super admin access. So that's what has happened in the environment, and that was, within Simpiwe's responsibilities and roles, and it was within, my responsibility to assign that super admin access to Simpiwe only for his job or what he has been hired for at PIC.
And I'm assuming that in the hiring of Simpiwe, there had been a full security clearance, the normal procedures that you would follow in hiring with somebody who would have access to the systems in that way.
Yes, ma'am. When we hired Simpiwe in the organization, the Human Capital Department was highly involved throughout the process. It was actually the Human Capital Department under the leadership of Mr. Christopher Pulwane that was conducting the whole process. Thank you, ma'am.
You may carry on with your statement.
Right. Ms. Menge, because your competency has been questioned by some previous people that gave evidence before the Commission, can you just also relate to the Commission your previous experience and your roles in your previous experience?
Thank you, sir. So before joining the PIC, I was a Chief Information Officer at the Road Accident Fund for 3 years, 8 months. And actually, I'm proud of the work that I did at the Road Accident Fund, because during my tenure as the Chief Information Officer of the Road Accident Fund, I even won 2 awards in the country. One of the awards that I won in the country was being a first runner-up for women in ICT under the category Outstanding Women in ICT, and I was awarded by MTN. That was in the private sector.
When was that?
It was in August in 2016, just before I joined the PIC. And the second award that I'm actually proud of that I won during my tenure at the Road Accident Fund is when I implemented, or I digitized the Road Accident Fund environment by implementing a rough electronic queue management system. And I won an award that was called Winner of Innovative Use of ICT for Effective Service Delivery, and I was awarded by CPSI. And actually, I'm very proud of having won that award, because the solution that I developed and deployed at the Road Accident Fund not only enabled the Road Accident Fund to achieve its strategic and operational objectives, however, it also had a positive impact on the road accident victims of the road of South Africa, because now we were able to take the services of the Road Accident Fund to the doorsteps of the people, and especially to those that would never have had an opportunity to interact with the Road Accident Fund effectively. So I used my capabilities and my knowledge of IT to ensure that I enable the citizens of the country, in particular the road accident victims, and also to enable the organization to achieve its strategic and operational objectives. And before the Road Accident Fund,
But what year was that when you got that award?
It was they were both in 2016, sir. Both the first runner-up for women in ICT and the winner of innovative use.
You said that one was in August 2016.
The women in ICT, it was towards the end of August in 2016, and I think the queue management, it was a month later, I can't recall, but it was shortly after I won the first one.
Okay, then just briefly, other roles which you filled or other organizations which you served in your capacity?
I also served, say, as a Group Chief Financial Officer for Impact Limited, which is Mondi Packaging. company. And I'm actually proud to indicate that I was the first black, young, female in the ICT industry to be the CIO at Impact. And after that, and there's quite a lot of innovation that I can go on that I did at Impact. Actually, the group CEO of Impact was proud of the work that I did at Impact during the time that I was at Impact. Before Impact, I was a Chief Information Officer for Armscor, the armaments company of South Africa. Before Armscor, I was a Head of Department for Information Resources Unit at the National Energy Regulator of South Africa. And before NESA, I was with South African Revenue Services, initially as a database administrator and promoted as a manager of senior database specialist. I need to pause here and brag about the work that I did at SARS. During our time at SARS, under the leadership of Mr. Ken Jarvis, he was our CIO, and our commissioner was Minister Pravin Gordhan. And we did excelling work, during that time. And it was during the time we were introducing the e-filing system in the country. And for 2 consecutive, financial years, I won a Star Award for my performance under the leadership of Ken Jarvis, and awarded by both Ken Jarvis and, the program that was championed by our commissioner, Minister Pravin Gordhan. He was our commissioner then. And before SARS, I was a junior database specialist at the Road Accident Fund. And before RAF, I was with IFIS, a small company that was responsible for the deployment of a financial information system at the Department of Treasury in Eastern Cape.
Thank you, Ms. Menye. Now moving on to the James Noku email saga, paragraph 9 of your statement.
Thank you, sir. So it was on the 5th of September in 2017, and all the EXCO members and EXCO invitees of PIC, including the senior managers, had a strategic planning session at Dippenderberg in Pretoria East. At about 1 in the afternoon, after we had had our lunch and as we were about to go back to the boardroom where the session was held, our CFO, Ms. Matshepo More, and the executive head of HR, Mr. Christopher Pulwane, they came to me. We were sitting in the lapa. And as the CFO approached me, I stood up and I went towards them. I asked Simpiwe to come with me, and Simpiwe was only 2 days or 3 days in the organization. And the reason why I had asked Simpiwe to come with me is because I wanted to introduce Simpiwe to the CFO, because I was reporting to the CFO. And as I was about to introduce Simpiwe, the CFO and Chris advised me that they have an urgent and a highly confidential request for me. They instructed me to immediately block and not to release all the emails that were being received by some employees in the organization, and they indicated that the emails were about the CEO, Dr. Den. I inquired to them about what they were referring to, and if they could also provide me with the subject of the emails and the email address of the sender, so that I can ask my information security team to action the instruction accordingly. Ms. More, our CFO, showed me from her mobile phone the subject of the emails that I must block and not release. The subject of the emails was PIC CEO funds girlfriend. The CFO indicated that some of the emails were blocked by our email gateway, and some employees received notifications, and that some of the emails went through. So basically what had happened in this regard is that we had an email gateway, and we had principles that we had implemented in our email gateway. So some of the emails that were sent to this distribution list were blocked by our email gateway, and once an email is blocked, a notification will be sent to the to that intended recipient that there was an email that was intended to you, however the email gateway had been blocked. So she indicated to me that I must not even release those emails that to those employees that have received those notifications. She indicated that I must also make sure that all those that were blocked by our email gateway are not released to anyone at PIC. She also indicated that I must ensure that the sender is restricted or blocked from sending any emails in the organization. The CFO and Chris requested me to also inform them via email after the team has blocked all the emails that had the aforementioned subjects. Then immediately I introduced Simpiwe and I went back to the boardroom where the strategic planning was held. And when this instruction was given to me by Chris and Matsepo, Simpiwe was present, was standing next to me, and because I was about to introduce him. So I immediately went back to the boardroom and opened my mailbox. After opening my mailbox, I picked up that there was an email notification that was sent to EXCO. Remember, I was part of the EXCO group or the distribution list of EXCO. That was sent to EXCO, however, it was blocked by the email gateway. Then I used that, notification. The subject of the email was the same as the one that the CFO and Chris had instructed me to block, and that it was not to be released. Then I used the same email notification, sent it to our information security team, and I have annexed, if you can refer to Annexure A in terms of my attachment that I have attached on my statement, requesting the information security team to block and to blacklist and not to release any of the emails that had the subject line that was stated by the CFO and Mr. Christopher Pulwane.
Mr. Chaba, can I just mention that we don't have the annexures to the statement? So can you make arrangements that we get them at some stage?
They were just being copied, Mr. Commissioner, but they will be given to the Commission.
Can I just ask a question, Ms. Menya? Would it have been normal practice for people, you use the example of the CFO and the head of HR discussing the urgent and important message that they had with you in front of somebody who to them was a complete stranger? Would that be standard practice that you have discussions in front of people, that there would be discussions in front of people you don't know?
Personally, ma'am, I would never have done that in person, in the presence of someone that I do not know, especially instructions of this nature. But I do not know what prompted them to do that. Maybe it was because it was urgent to them, and hence they did that. So I really don't know, ma'am.
Yeah, I wasn't only referring to this specific instance. I was asking whether there were conversations more generally that, in a sense, should have been or should be dealt with in a more circumspect manner that were not. Or have you got other instances that you're aware of, or is this unique to this event?
This was unique to this event, ma'am.
So let's carry on. You had an inquiry from a non-executive board member.
Okay. So just to conclude on the previous paragraph, I executed the instruction as per the instruction that I received from Matsepo and Chris, and also I sent those emails to the CEO to confirm that we have executed the instruction successfully. Then a day later, on the 6th, at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, while still attending the strategic planning session, I received an email from our company secretary, Ms. Bongani Matebula, about the same matter. Her email contained an email that was forwarded by one of our board members, Ms. Lindy Wetoi. The email from the board member was asking the company secretary to check with me as an executive head of IT if the email that was received by her was not a virus. I've also attached that email that came from Ms. Doi, sent to Bongani and sent to me. I then responded to Ms. Bongani Matebula by indicating that a similar matter was brought to my attention by the CFO and Chris a day earlier. I informed her that the CFO had asked me to blacklist and not to release any of the emails from that sender and with that subject. I also indicated to her that the reason why Ms. Doi would have received that email is due to the fact that she has a private email, which means that she is running her emails on either webmail or Gmail or Hotmail, as opposed to using the PIC email account, which is a secure, network, because in PIC we're using our secure network with proper security rules and principles that would allow us to block, email.
Okay, so the next part of your statement is the CEO, Dr. Den's inappropriate involvement in the investigation.
So on the 18th of, in fact, on the 17th of September in the evening, we received an email invite from Dr. Den inviting all EXCO members to an EXCO meeting. For some strange reasons, the meeting invite came directly from him and not from his personal assistants. Under normal circumstances, we always received email invites from Desiree, his personal assistant. And I recall that this meeting invite was sent on a Sunday evening. Initially, this meeting invite was for 7 o'clock in the morning, and shortly after we had received the meeting invite, it was changed to 9 o'clock, in the morning. Then, when we got to the meeting on the 18th, then, on Monday the 18th, Dr. Den indicated that there must be no recording of the meeting. He indicated that to Bongani and Velna, which is our company secretariat. And then he started the meeting, and I must indicate that it was a very hectic meeting. It was, Dr. Den was very furious together with the CFO in that meeting. He advised the EXCO members about the James Noku emails and the anonymous person that has been constantly calling him. And he even made examples of, this person that has been, calling him anonymously. He also advised us that he was introduced to 2 ladies by a certain minister of cabinet in a meeting that was held at the airport. He also said in that meeting that we have been hacked by our own people and our systems have been hacked by our own. And he then inquired whether there was anyone of us who would like to say anything from the EXCO meeting after he had done this introduction. Then Mr. Dion Botha raised his hand, and he said that he does not believe that we have been hacked. Mr. Botha indicated that whoever has been sending those emails has that information. Then I also raised my hand because I wanted to clarify the aspect of hacking. Also raised my hand to clarify that what was contained in the email, which I had seen, is far from hacking, because I was referring to this email that was sent by Bongani to me. That was the first email that I saw when Ms. Doi sent it to Bongani, then Bongani sent it to me to check if it was not a virus. And then I explained what hacking is. And I also indicated that the information that was contained in that email, by the look of things, appear to come from someone who knows Dr. Den very well. And in our systems and in our databases at PIC, we don't store such information. We don't, in our databases, you'll never store information about Vyokazi having a girlfriend and girlfriend is having financial issues. There is never, such information in our databases. You'll never find a table, of that nature. So I explained, what hacking is and the type of information that is contained in our systems.
Just for the benefit of the Commission, Ms. Menge, can you give that explanation of what hacking is versus the James Noku email distribution?
Thank you, sir. So basically, hacking is to use a technical measure to penetrate, a system for the intention of getting, information for malicious use. And the information that was contained on the James Noku email, the one that I received from Bongani via Ms. Doi, from Ms. Doi via Bongani, had information that there's an alleged girlfriend, I've forgotten the name of the girlfriend.
Miss Lowe.
Miss Lowe, yes. And the girlfriend had financial issues, and Dr. Den had funded the girlfriend with 300,000 rand, and there was an MST transaction that was being facilitated, So all this information that was contained in there, it would be as if, it will be someone that would know me that I have, this boyfriend, and this boyfriend is going through financial issues. And that information is never stored on our systems.
But at least I suppose information relating to the MST transaction would be somewhere in the information data.
Yes, it's only the information about the transaction that is stored on our system, but what was contained on the body of the email is not stored on our system, sir.
Okay, please proceed.
Then as the EXCO meeting continued, one of the EXCO members, I think it was Mervyn, he was sitting on the corner, he suggested that all EXCO members must be subjected to a lie detector test. And we all agreed and happily agreed and indicated our willingness to go through a lie detector test. The proposal to subject all the EXCO members to a lie detector test was never considered by our CEO. Then in the same EXCO meeting, Dr. Den continued and said that our IT systems are very weak and that they have appointed an IT company that will work with that will look into the IT security matters of the organization. He then looked at me and said, unfortunately, Sisi, that's how he used to address me. He used to call me Sisi, and I used to call him Mhlekazi. Mhlekazi is sir in English. And he looked at me and he said, unfortunately, Sisi, you will be working with them. I don't know why he chose to use the word unfortunately. I also did not ask him. I just nodded. He indicated that they have already appointed this IT company that will be performing the information security assessment, I think the previous Friday.
Was that done? The assessment of the security
Yes,
system.
I've covered it in my statement later on, sir.
Just one question, Ms. Menye. Just to go back a bit, when you were asked to block the mails and all, you know, to block or stop them, was that a proper process in terms of governance of the IT when you are under attack or something like that? How would you characterize that in terms of governance of the IT systems?
In terms of IT governance, say, you know, there are proper processes that are followed and assessments that are followed to implement a certain instruction or a principle. In this regard, and IT governance is informed by corporate governance, you know. Before one can say block a certain email, remember IT is an enabler of business needs. You need to assess what impact will this have on the business so that you can implement an IT instruction. And this, you know, to me was a whistleblow, and we have a whistleblow policy at PIC, and that supports and encourages, you know, reporting of certain incidents at PIC. Under normal circumstances, I would have, you know, if I was in the position of the executive directors, not allowed that to happen, you know, not to be blocked. However, to manage, you know, the disturbance of the organization, you know, I understood them that it should have been, you know, contained as well, so that, you know, we cannot have this information to be distributed to everyone in the organization. But before you implement an IT instruction, you need to assess the risk that will be that the business will be impacted with before you can implement any IT instruction.
So it means it was tackled properly because there was a whistleblowing event, which, you know, which is a good event, generally good event, and then there was a process of trying to limit the damage to the corporation, and hence and direct that whistleblowing process properly. Is that what you would say?
When it comes to the whistleblowing process, you know, there are different ways and means, you know, I think that can be used to blow a whistle. Mm-hmm. I think one of the ways could be via email, it could be via telephone, it could be via maybe a written letter, it could be via a fax or anything. So maybe this James Noku, you know, decided to use this process or this avenue to blow the whistle. But it should have been evaluated by the organization. But on the other hand, you know, as an executive, you needed to control this as well. so that it cannot disturb the entire organization, because this was disturbing the entire organization.
So are you saying that largely it was handled properly? The first part of the issues?
Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
Would you say that?
Yes, it was, but yes, it was.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, we can move on. Then you were instructed to report the matter to the police. How did that come about?
Okay. On the same day after the EXCO meeting, Dr. Den called me to his office, and he advised me that he has had one-on-one sessions with all the executives in the organization. And the main aim of the one-on-one meetings was to check if there's any one of us who is unhappy in the business. He asked me if I would perhaps have an idea of the person that would have sent the emails to the PIC board and employees. I advised him that I have no idea about the person who has, been sending the emails. He indicated in that meeting that he was asking all the EXCO members the same questions. He also asked me, from a technical perspective, if I can assist in identifying where those emails were coming from and who sent them. And he stated clearly that he wants to teach that person who has been sending these emails a lesson. I told him that I will engage with my information security team and ask them to assist in terms of tracing, and tracking where those emails were coming from, using the IP addresses and the email headers. I then engaged my information security team, who immediately checked the source of the emails from the internal PIC network, and we found out that those emails were not emanating or were not sent from our internal PIC network, which means the IP address that of the computer that had sent those emails was not in the IP range of the IP addresses of the PIC network. Then, in our conversation with the information security team, we, knew that in line with ISO 27001, we can partner with SAPS or cybersecurity or law enforcement agencies in the country to assist in terms of, identifying who the sender is by obtaining a subpoena or Section 205 that will be sent to the company that has sent, or the ISP, Internet Service Provider, that has, sent those emails. Went back to Dr. Den, I gave him feedback that the source of the emails is not from our internal network. I also advise him, if it is acceptable with him, the team recommends that the PIC must engage our cybercrime unit of the country through SAPS. He then asked me to go to SAPS to report the matter. And I indicated to him that I cannot go to SAPS alone. I will need someone from internal audit to come with me, preferably the head of internal audit, because internal audit were the custodians of the PIC whistleblowing policy. He then asked Mr. Lufuno Nemagovani, the head of internal audit, and I to go to the police station to report the matter. So we went to Brooklyn Police Station together with Lufuno. We had that the email, the body of the email, and also we had that attachment, that MST memo that was attached on the email. When we got to the Brooklyn Police Station, we were advised by the police at the Brooklyn Police Station that they cannot open, a case in that regard, because the document that we had was not a classified document. We went back to the office, we gave feedback to Dr. Den, and Dr. Den requested us to go to the company secretary, Bongani, and request for a classified document. Bongani advised us that there is no classified document, and then it ended there. We could not go forward in terms of opening the matter. Then, on the 21st of September at 2 o'clock, I was absent in the office as I was not feeling well. There was a staff meeting. And when I came back to the office on the 22nd of September, I was approached by a number of IT team members who indicated their disappointment in some of the statements that were uttered by our CEO in the meeting. They said, I'm reporting what they told me because I was not in the meeting. Amongst others, he indicated that our IT systems are very weak, hence the negative media reports against him and the CFO. He also indicated that the PIC has been hacked. In the same meeting, he indicated that they have appointed a company that will look into information security processes and systems of PIC. And now, my team wanted to know the company that has been appointed and the scope of work, which is the same questions I had to Dr. Den and Matsepo when he advised us during that EXCO meeting of the 18th, when he said that he had appointed a company. And I was still waiting for the name of the company, the scope of work, and the involvement of the IT department. And I told them that I am still waiting for the CEO and the CFO to advise me about the company. And as soon as they get back to me, I will advise them about the company. Then on Wednesday, the 27th of September, around 5 p.m. In the afternoon, as I was about to leave the office, my team was performing an IT maintenance, which we used to do on a weekly basis. And this IT maintenance is called, we used to call it the Patch Wednesdays, whereby they are applying the patches on our systems to ensure that our systems are secure, our systems are safe, our systems are available. And as I was about to leave the office, I went to inform them. Usually I would go to them and inform my team that I'm leaving, and we'll have our small chat, then I would leave. As we were having our small conversation, the information security team raised their concerns again about what the CEO had indicated in their staff meeting, in particular about the IT systems that are being hacked and the systems that are being weak and the IT department that is being weak, And they were very concerned and worried about these, sentiments that were shared by Dr. Den. Then Mr. Timothy Marobana said to me, immediately after that meeting, when they got back to their workstations, they tried to trace where these James Noku emails were coming from. He indicated to me that his investigations pointed him to a certain media house in Sentin. He then showed me the security procedure that he applied to track where the emails were sent from. Was very excited about this, and I immediately called Dr. Den, and I said to Dr. Den, Dr. Den, I have some information that might lead us to the identification of the sender of these emails. I'm sitting with my information security guys. Can we see you in the morning the following day? Dr. Den agreed. First thing the following morning, we went to Dr. Den's office around 7 o'clock. It was myself, it was Simpiwe, it was Timothy, and Chris Polwane was in the meeting. Then Timothy took Dr. Den and the rest of us through a process, that demonstrated to Dr. Den, Chris, myself, and Simpiwe, a process to investigate how to, check the source of the email using an email header. And during this demonstration, the security engineer advised Dr. Den that the email header only shows the translated IP address. The translated IP address is not the original IP address. It will be the IP address that will be used, to translate an email, the one that you will see when you're trying to check the emails. This is especially when you utilize these private emails, because there are different servers across the world, that are originating these emails, or the emails are relayed, via, it's a IT technical process. So he was using a translated email address and an email header. And however, using the information that team had, he showed the CEO the location where the email was sent from. And the location could be identified as Interface Holding, 25 West Street in Houghton in Johannesburg. Then immediately, as Timothy had concluded, showing or taking us through this instruction or process, And Simpiwe indicated in that meeting he is used, in his past roles as a head of information security. He was involved in terms of investigating matters of this nature. Then the CEO said Simpiwe must run with this instruction. Then on Friday, the 29th of September, at about 5 to 4, I received a text message from Simpiwe with the following information. Update from SAPS, an inquiry has been lodged with SAPS Cybercrime Unit. The inquiry number is 609-2017. A docket with a case number will be opened on Monday by Colonel Steinberg. Thanks, Simpiwe. Immediately after I received this text message, I sent it to Dr. Den, and I've attached that text message as part of my annexures as Annexure C. Then on Monday, the 2nd of October, at about 11:30, I received another text message from Simpiwe with the following information. Message from SAPS, case registered on 2017-10-02 at Brooklyn Police Station with the case number and the contact details. I immediately forwarded the same text message to Dr. Den, and Dr. Den acknowledged that text message by saying, thanks, Sisi.
Just a question is that those two texts, they didn't show any corruption charges yet, and you didn't know of any corruption charges?
No, they didn't have, the case was not classified as corruption or what. It was just the information that is written, that is contained on the statement.
Okay.
And I was not even aware of whether it's a corruption case or anything. So the information that I had was only via the text messages. And Simpiwe did not come back to me and said, and give feedback in terms of, I got to the police and this is what happened and we classified and all of those. The only thing that I received were these text messages, which I immediately sent to Dr. Den.
Sorry, just one other question on that. At any point at this stage, or at any stage in this investigation, did you or any of your team or the CFO bring in your legal counsel to say, look, this is what's happening? Was there any advice given to you from your internal or external legal advisors?
Nothing whatsoever, ma'am.
Okay, Ms. Menya, we can move on to the engagement of Naledi Advisory Services.
Then on Wednesday, the 4th of October 2017, I was invited to attend a meeting with Dr. Den at 11 o'clock in his office. When I got to Dr. Den's office, he took me to his boardroom. When we got to his boardroom, there was Ms. Franz Lekubo and a second gentleman. I can't recall the name of the second gentleman. Dr. Den introduced them and said, my meeting is with them, and he left immediately. The strange thing about this meeting is that he just, he took me by hand and he was standing in the door and he said, Vyogas, your meeting is with them. He didn't even introduce them, and then he left. And Mr. Franz Lekubo formally introduced himself, and he introduced the second gentleman. I'm so sorry, I can't recall the name of the second gentleman. He advised me that they are from Naledi Advisory Services, which is a forensic company that has been appointed by PIC to investigate the information leaks, including, the senders of these emails that have been routed in the organization. He then, after asked me to introduce myself, including my role at PIC, he further indicated that they have few questions to ask me. I asked them whether I am a suspect in this investigation or their interview is based on the fact that I am an executive head of IT, And the reason why I asked them is because they said they are a forensic investigating company. They advised me that I was not a suspect, but the interview was based on the fact that I hold the position of executive head of IT in PIC, at PIC. I responded to all the questions I gave him. I also gave him my email address to contact me should he require further information from me, because I wanted to assist him with the investigation. Then on Friday, the 6th of October, As we were attending a board strategic planning session at Magaliesberg, Simpiwe advised me that he had just received a call from a certain Colonel Nama, who requested a meeting with him at the Gauteng Provincial SAPS office about the case that he opened at the Brooklyn police station. He also indicated that he was concerned about this call from SAPS provincial offices because the case to investigate the sender of the James Noku emails was registered at the Brooklyn police station, and he does not understand why this call is from the SAPS provincial office. I asked him to also, after he had told me this, I asked him to go to Dr. Den and inform him about this call. He immediately went to Dr. Den. Upon his return from Dr. Den, I requested Simpiwe to put everything that he had told me in writing. He then sent me an email with the subject line, update on James Noku emails. Subsequent to receipt of that email from Simpiwe, I responded with an acknowledgement of receipt and copied Dr. Den so that he can receive the contents of the initial email from Simpiwe. What I've also done is I have done an extract of that email and I've included it as part of my statement.
Can we jump those emails because we have gone through them?
Okay. Then on Thursday, the 12th of October at 11:30, I was invited to a meeting with the CEO in his boardroom. Again, when I got to his boardroom, I met Mr. Franz Lekubo and his colleague. They advised me that the purpose of the meeting was to follow up on the meeting that was held on the 4th of October 2017. They asked me a few questions about the email flow in the organization and the printers in the organization. I then responded to them. I also indicated in this meeting that the best thing for them to do is for them to come to the second floor to my IT team, and so that I can show them, all of these things technically, instead of me going up and down and them having to listen to me. So, because I picked up, during our conversations that they had very limited knowledge of IT, and I wanted to show them, and I wanted to cooperate and to give them as much information as possible so that they can conclude and fast track their investigation. And that was, I think, on the same day in the evening, I sent Dr. Den an email indicating them to him that should the investigators need anything, they must not hesitate to come to our floor so that we can assist them immediately. And then on Friday, the 13th of October, in the morning.
Question. When the case was put to SEPS, did the board of the PIC know about the case?
I would not know, sir. The only thing that I know is that when Simpiwe will give me the text messages, I will forward them to Dr. Den. I am not sure whether Dr. Den would have informed the board.
Okay, let's move on to your meeting with the provincial commissioner.
Then on Friday, the 13th of October 2017, Simpiwe came to me. I was in a meeting with one of my senior managers, Ms. Vukile Dlamini, in her office. He advised me that he had received a call from Colonel Nama indicating that he would like to meet with him at 1 o'clock at their offices in Braamfontein. He also asked me to accompany him to this meeting because he was not comfortable meeting with them as the matter was registered at Brooklyn and now he's receiving calls from the provincial office in Braamfontein. I advised him that I must first inform Dr. Den and seek permission from him before I can go and attend the meeting. I immediately called Dr. Den, and Dr. Den indicated that he was in a meeting with our client, GEPF, and I can go to the meeting. I indicated to Dr. Den over the telephone that as soon as I'm back from the meeting, I will give him feedback. Then we went to the meeting. When we got to the meeting, it was myself, Colonel Nama, Simpiwe, and Colonel Modise. Colonel Modise and Colonel Nama mentioned that they were under the impression that the person who opened the case, which is Simpiwe, was the same person who made the allegations of corruptions on the emails, which is James Noku, and that they wanted to make sure that this person is protected. So they thought that Simpiwe is James Noku. And Simpiwe clarified that, no, I am not James Noku. However, I was instructed by our CEO to open a case to obtain a subpoena so that we can identify the sender. And I was there when this was said. And I immediately jumped, and I said, Mr. Modise, the instruction was very clear from the CEO. This was the instruction to investigate the sender. And immediately, Colonel Modise said to me, Sisi, the meeting is between the person who has opened the case and SAPS. And at that point, I was excused from the meeting. Then I went to the nearest McDonald's that was there to get myself something to eat. I came back. When I came back, Simpiwe was in a different office now. And I asked the PA where Simpiwe was, and she said she was in a different office. She was busy with Mr. Nama. Waited outside. When Simpiwe was done, he came to me and I asked him what was happening inside that meeting, and said he was writing the statement about their conversation, and asked Simpiwe to provide me with that statement so that I can give it to Dr. Den. He indicated that the statement is still with Mr. Nama, and he will give it to me by Monday. Monday morning when we got to the office, I dropped him an email because, before as we're going back to the office on that Friday, I called Dr. Den. Remember, before I went to the meeting, I had indicated to Dr. Den that I will give him feedback about the meeting. So I called Dr. Den to give him feedback. Dr. Den was still in a meeting with the client, and he said he will call me back. He never called me back. Then on Monday, wanted to close the loop, to ensure that I report everything. Dropped an email to Simpiwe. I've attached it as part of the statement, requesting Simpiwe to give me the 2 statements that he did when he opened the case at Brooklyn Police Station, and the statement that he wrote on the 13th of October, in my absence when I was excused from the meeting. Then Simpiwe responded by indicating that he did not, there was no statement that he did when he opened the case on the 2nd of October. However, the statement that he had is the one that he did on the 13th of October. So he sent me that statement. Immediately after I received that statement, I sent it to Dr. Den. I've copied the contents of the statements and the emails, in this, evidence.
Mr. Commissioner, I note that it's 11 o'clock. Can we carry on through the tea break? Okay, thank you. You may proceed.
Somebody were to be under pressure, let us know. Okay?
Ms. Menge indicates that she's
I'm good, sir. Thank you.
Let's carry on.
Just to check one thing, so on the 2nd of October, we just had a case number from Simpiwe, so there was no statement and all that?
Nothing whatsoever. I only received that text message,
text
which I
message.
forwarded to Dr. Den.
Yes.
And then on the 13th, after we got back from the provincial offices, I requested Simpiwe to forward me the statement.
Yes.
And on Monday, the 16th, I requested him via the email, and he sent me the statement. And
Okay.
the only statement he sent me was the one that he wrote on the 13th. And he indicated on the email, as you can see, that he said there was no statement that he made on the 2nd when he opened the case. So immediately, upon receipt of that statement, I forwarded it to Dr. Den.
And you say that statement or a copy thereof forms part of your annexures?
Yes, sir,
Yes.
it is. I've also made an extract of that statement on page number 16, paragraph number 73. Then On Tuesday, the 7th of November, at about 1:30 in the afternoon, I received a meeting invitation from Dr. Den's office. The meeting venue was his boardroom. When I got to the boardroom, I met Mr. Franz Lekubo and his colleague again. Mr. Franz Lekubo asked me about whether I am aware of the case that was opened by the Senior Manager Information Security Risk and Governance, which is Simpiwe. I indicated that I am aware of the case and that the senior manager was instructed by the CEO to open the case. And the reason why I said that I was aware of the case was due to the fact that Dr. Den was also aware of the case. He had the case number, he had the statement, and he had everything. Mr. Franz Lekubo further asked me if Dr. Den was aware of the case. I indicated to him that he was aware of the case, and I had kept him updated about all the feedback that I received from the Senior Manager, Information Security Risk and Governance. I further indicated to Mr. Franz Lekubo that upon receipt of the SAPS inquiry number, the case number, the statement, and all the email updates from the senior manager, I had always made sure that I sent them through to Dr. Den as they were, and I have proof in that regard. I even showed him via my cell phone because I was running my emails on the cell phone. I showed him the emails that I've sent to Dr. Den, and I also showed him the text messages.
Okay, you may proceed.
Then, on the 30th of October, at around 9:45 in the morning, I received an email from the PA, the personal assistant of our Chief Information Officer, Ms. More, and the email was requesting for my availability to meet with BCX regarding internal assessment. I responded to Noku and indicated my availability in the same afternoon between 2 and 3:30. And at 10 o'clock, Noktula sent me an email. What I did is I forwarded that email to both Simpiwe, Vukile, and Den. Those were the 3 technical senior managers in the IT department, and requesting them to prepare so that they can join me in that meeting. And then Noktula sent me a meeting invite with a subject head, meeting with BCX. I accepted it, and I also extended the meeting invite to my 3 senior managers. At 2 o'clock that afternoon, we went to the meeting. And in the meeting, there was Mr. Eric McGee from BCX and a lady and a gentleman from SensePost. I've forgotten their names. And Mr. McGee introduced himself as a project lead for the security assessment project that the CEO and the CFO of PIC have requested BCX to conduct. He further indicated that they have outsourced the security assessment initiative to SensePost because BCX did not have information security capability at that point, and SensePost is the company in the country that has, that is running information security initiatives and projects, and they are good in terms of that. So then he introduced a gentleman from SensePost as a technical expert that will be conducting the assessment. The strange thing about this meeting is that there was no one from the organization to introduce us to BCX. There was never a background that Vuyo, subsequent to that meeting that we had on the 18th, whereby I indicated that we had hired an information security company. That company is then there for BCX. So there was never, a formal introduction of BCX. We now get to a meeting and we meet BCX, and BCX, introduces them. But we were, although it was shocking, but we were used to that mode of operation in the organization. Then subsequent to Mr. McGee introducing the gentleman, we then asked the gentleman, I specifically, I must indicate, I asked him about his information security credentials to perform the job. And one of the reasons that I asked him about his information security credentials, I saw that he was very young. And I did not want anyone who does not have proper credentials and proper competencies to get into the PIC network and create, more risks and expose my PIC network and the information to unnecessary, risks because of what was happening in the organization. So I was very protective of that network. I wanted a highly qualified person that will be working on the assignment, especially when it comes to information security, because it's one of the functions that is very close to my heart. So I clearly indicated to Mr. Makji that we will not allow someone with incorrect information security credentials to work on our company systems, and that will be exposing the PIC systems and information to a high risk in the organization. We then asked him about the procurement process that was followed to identify them as the suitable service provider for the task. Unfortunately, Mr. Makji was unable to respond to us in this regard. I also, because I'm very strict when it comes to information security, asked if their company was vetted to perform this task in the organization. Remember, when you hire or when you appoint an information security company to perform a security exercise in your organization, there are vetting processes that the companies are supposed to be exposed to in order for you to know that you have hired the right company that will deliver according to the expectations of the environment and according to the quality that is expected by the environment and the outcomes. We then indicated to Mr. Makji that before we can give them access in our network and the systems, there's an information security template that we will design and share with them so that they can have a clear understanding of the purpose and the scope of the exercise. Remember, when we went to this meeting, we did not know what the meeting was about. We did not know what the scope was. We did not know also what the involvement of the information technology department was. So I had to define and to develop or to design this template that will clearly, define the scope and the involvement of the IT department and who has given them the mandate, to perform this exercise. And during our conversation with Mr. Makji, he gave us a very good compliment by indicating that sometime in September, they installed an evil twin in our environment, and they have been trying to penetrate our network with no success. And he actually said, Ms. Menye, you've implemented, good security measures in the environment, and we've been trying to penetrate your network with no success. He complimented us about the strong and effective security measures that we have implemented in our network. And sir, we were very shocked to hear about this. We asked him who gave him permission to install the rogue unit, and he advised us that it was the CEO and the CFO who gave them the permission to install this evil twin in the environment. We then agreed in the meeting that Mr. Makji will send us a meeting invitation for the kickoff session of the IT security assessment.
Sorry to interrupt you, Ms. Menye. That engagement of BC or these people that planted the evil twin, is that a normal process? Is that a normal thing to do to test IT systems in an organization?
What normally happens is that there are IT governance processes that should be followed in terms of doing that, In terms of information security, what should have happened is that the organization would have made a decision as part of our information security strategy to say that from time to time, we will appoint ethical hackers to hack our system, But the way that Dr. Den and Matsepo did is totally, not supported, and it's not in line with good practice and with good IT governance. Why I'm saying that is due to the fact that if our network could have gone down in the environment due to the penetration that was done by this planting of the penetration, no one would have known what has happened in the environment. We needed to prepare our environment as well. That was too risky to the organization, and you do not do that outside the involvement and the information of information technology. That was too risky. That was too risky because I would have found myself having to troubleshoot something that I do not know. Yet it is the CEO who was trying to hack, or to penetrate our systems, and yet I'm not aware of what is happening in the environment. And actually, sir, what had happened is that our internet service provider was Internet Solutions. For a period of 3.5 weeks to a month, we picked up, that there was high level of threat detection, in our network. And I called Internet Solutions and I asked them, what has been happening in our network? Because this is not normal, And they did not know what was happening. And yet to find out that it was our CEO that was doing this in the environment. And I don't know why he would have done that in the environment, because the whole environment of PIC could have gone down, because of this. And I was going to be found wanting, not knowing how to restore the services, what was the root cause, and what has caused this whole, disturbance in our network. So subsequent to our meeting with Eric McGee, we sent him the form that had all the necessary information that we requested from him in terms of them doing the penetration testing. And I must indicate that if Mr. McGee and them, they were not blocked by our network security measures that we had implemented, we would not have known about the second phase of the assignment. And the reason why, they only came to us is because they were unable to penetrate our network. So
Let me just check something here. So a mystery hacker, are you saying that you need to prepare for that, or they should have told you the period or when the attack was going to eventuate? Or I'm just trying to find out how and when you must know when that hack will happen, because it needs to be a surprise in some ways. Yeah, so can you just clarify that, what you need to know before it happens, these kind of issues?
a mystery hacking, say, it's a different ball game altogether, and how you prepare your environment for that is by implementing effective security measures in the environment to ensure that you prevent intrusions and, in the environment. However, this one is a different one. It is an approved, security exercise by the organization to be undertaken. The IT department, at least I should have been informed that this is what is going to happen, and I should have been part of this process, because this was going to happen in my department, and my information security team should have been involved in this, So that's what I'm saying. So anyone who decides to hack, an organization can hack. You don't prepare for a mystery hacker, but the way you prepare for it is by implementing effective security measures. But the difference on this one is that services were procured by the PIC, and we had an IT department, we had an information security department within the IT department that is responsible for this. We could have been part of the scope, of the team that defined the scope of work. And remember, sir, what was happening is that we were in the process of defining an information security strategy for the organization, because when I joined PIC, I identified a lot of gaps in the information security processes and systems of PIC. So this was just, taking us.
I get you, yeah. No, I get it. Thanks. Thank you.
So in other words, one would have expected protocols or at least information to the IT department that this was going to happen.
Yes, sir. And in fact, we were supposed to have been leading that process. And actually, this process was part of the tasks that was identified as part of my information security strategy to be undertaken in the organization. So we did all the necessary governance processes with Mr. Mark G just to correct and to rectify this process so that we can be in control and support them effectively. And on the same day at about 4:45, I sent an email to Dr. Den raising concerns about the phase 1 of information security assessment that was done without the involvement of the IT department and exposed the PIC to information security risk. I copied Simpiwe Maisela and Den Mabuza, who was my senior manager for infrastructure. I wrote, quite a long email with serious concerns, on this email. I am not sure whether you want me to read this email, sir.
No, it's not necessary to.
Okay. And then I also, in the email, requested to have a meeting with Dr. Den so that I can discuss with him, these high risks that he's exposing the organization to, because there is no way that you can run a penetration testing, vulnerabilities assessment in an environment without the head of IT and head of information security not being involved and not leading it. So he responded by indicating that he will be meeting me on the following day. Then on the following day, on the 1st of November, we met with Dr. Den in his office, and he advised us that this information security assessment was an instruction from the board of PIC. We asked him whether the procurement process was followed to identify the service provider, and his response was the assessment was a PIC board instruction. I also asked him whether the service provider that was given the task was vetted, and we did not get a response in this regard except to indicate that this was an instruction from the board of PIC. In the same meeting, Dr. Den indicated to us that we must refrain from communicating with him through emails and advised us to communicate with him verbally, either in a meeting setup or telephonically. This was confirmed in the email that I've attached below that was sent by the Senior Manager, Information Security, Risk and Governance. I then, in the same meeting, requested Dr. Den to share with me the terms of reference that were given to the service provider and used during the contracting stage when they were contracting BCX and Senspo, so that I can understand the scope of the work and the objectives of the exercise in order to provide the right support to them. He indicated that he will ask his personal assistant, Desiree, to furnish me with the terms of reference. Indeed, Des forwarded the terms of reference to me, the scope of work of BCX. And I acknowledged, and there's an email that is acknowledging the terms of reference. However, in that same email, I would like to indicate that I, asked Dr. Den if these colleagues from BCX and SensePost have signed an NDA, non-disclosure agreement with the organization, because remember, when you deal with information security issues, you're exposing the company, company information to external people. So they were supposed to have signed an NDA in this regard. So there was no response, in that regard.
Okay, Ms. Menye, just for the benefit of time, your statement has been provided to the Commission. If we can just try to round it off in paragraph by paragraph. Yeah.
Okay.
And can I just ask if the evidence leader can obtain a copy of the minutes where the response was that the investigation was an instruction from the board of the PIC? I think it would be useful to get the board minute to that effect.
We have it. We will provide it to the Commission. Thank you, Mr. Commissioner.
Then on the 2nd of, so we did everything to support BCX with their assessment. On the 2nd of November 2017, I had a meeting with Simpiwe, and Simpiwe advised me that on the 3rd of November, he will have to hand over digital evidence of the James Noku emails on a compact disc. He therefore requested me to grant him access to our email archiving solution. This is where the super admin right issue is coming in. This is the first time where I gave Simpiwe the super admin access to our email archiving solution. Simpiwe comes to me, he requests me to provide him a super admin access in order for him to extract this email from Mimecast, because he was requested by the investigator to provide this evidence in a digital form to them. So I write a memo to Mimecast requesting Mimecast to grant Simpiwe permission of a super admin user so that he can extract this information. So I need to clear it now that the reason why I gave Simpiwe that access on that day was due to the fact that he wanted that digital evidence so that he can give it over to the investigator that was investigating the matter. And then...
A question. And by now, I think within the company, all people know about the corruption charges, I think. Yeah? Is that true? That by this time, Dr. Dan, all the parties know about these corruption charges?
I don't know. No. Remember, we know about the case,
Yes.
but we don't know whether it's a corruption case. We know that there's a case to investigate the sender. Dr. Dan was fully aware of that.
Yeah. But in terms of the timelines, I'm just trying to check whether by then, by November 2017, did Dr. Dan know about the corruption charges?
He knew
Because-
that there was a case to investigate the sender.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
I am not sure about the classification of the case, like it's classified as corruption, yes, yeah. But I knew that there was a case to investigate the sender. Hence, I had given Simpiwe that permission to extract those emails so that he can give them over to the investigator to investigate as part of the investigation
No,
process.
I think the reason why my colleague is asking, isn't it because around the 13th of October, if I'm correct with the month, Mr. Maisela made a statement in which he mentions that he didn't realize that this was a corruption case against the CEO and so on?
Yes,
There's a
he
copy
wrote
of-
that.
Copy of the statement that you then sent
Then
on.
I sent it immediately to Dr. Dan.
Yeah, so at least he should have known by
He
this
should have
time.
known by that time.
Yes.
He should have known. He should have known. You're quite right. So immediately after I gave Simpiwe did what he was supposed to do, which is to extract the digital evidence. However, as he was busy extracting this digital evidence of the James Noku emails, he picked up, that there is an account that has been created in our email archiving system, a suspicious account that has been created in our email archiving system. Then Simpiwe comes to me and advises me about this suspicious email account that has been created in our email archiving system. And the reason why Simpiwe picked up this suspicious account was due to the fact that its naming convention was not in line with our IT naming convention of the email addresses or standards at PIC. He comes to me and he advised me about this. I immediately wrote an email to Dr. Dan indicating that I was quite sure that this is the account that has been used to leak information at PIC. So I immediately wanted to purge it, to delete it in the organization so that we can investigate it. So I wrote an email to Dr. Dan, and I also attached a memo that I had, I was going to send to Mimecast, requesting Mimecast to immediately purge that account because I was sure that this is the account that was leaking information. Send that email to Dr. Dan. Dr. Dan then immediately called me and, I sent an email to Dr. Dan together with the attachment. At the same time, I asked my information security team to check with Mimecast about the person who granted them permission to create this suspicious account. And it should be noted that, the instruction to create the account was neither from me nor my senior managers. Then I was shocked, with disbelief when I saw the contents of the memo that was submitted by Dr. Dan to Mimecast. So what happened is that after my information security engineer contacted Mimecast. Mimecast sent them a memo that was written by Dr. Den, giving Mimecast permission to create this suspicious account for Mr. Franz Lekubo, and on the memo, there were names of 6 executives that their emails should be monitored for a certain period. And I've just did an extract of that memo that was written by Dr. Den. And the names that were on the list were Ms. Vyoka Zimenye, myself, Mr. Paul Magula, Bongani Matebula, Pamela Pala, Lufuno Nebakovani, and Ernest Nesane. I have also attached this memo as part of this evidence. To me, this was tantamount to the CEO spying on the executives mentioned above. What was even more strange to me, was the fact that the CEO was one that was inappropriately spearheading this investigation of finding the whistleblower, whilst the very allegations of corruptions were leveled against him. So this was really very strange and shocking to me. So at the same day, after Dr. Den received my email indicating that I want to purge that account, Dr. Den wrote me an email that I should not send that letter to Mimecast. And immediately Dr. Den called me, and he was very furious, very angry, and he said I must not delete that account. That account was created by him. And he went on and on, shouting, and I told him that the recent decisions by him on the IT department are concerning, taking into consideration the fact that I am the executive head of IT, and yet neither my team nor I are involved in any decisions that are involving IT, these days. So he's making decisions that are exposing the organization to a high risk. You can never, give an external person super admin rights to a system. If Dr. Den wanted to investigate those 6 people, what he should have done is to ask for the backup of all of those mailboxes of those 6 people and attach them or restore them to a certain server or a certain computer. Then that investigator would work on those, accounts, not to expose our IT systems or our business information to an external person. That's against good governance. That's against, IT governance. So on the same day, I sent that email to Dr. Den, after he had confirmed that that account was created by him and I must not purge that account. I wish to indicate, that all the efforts to appoint BCX, SensePost, Naledi Advisory Services were quite clearly aimed at identifying the whistleblower, this James Noku or James Noku, which is contrary to the fraud and whistleblowing policy of PIC, which is aimed at encouraging anonymous reporting and protection of whistleblowers. This is also contrary to the provisions of PRICA and Protected Disclosures Act. Then, on the same day, I had to make a follow-up to Simpiwe then. Remember, I had given him access to the environment to extract those emails so that he can provide digital evidence to SAPS. Then I wanted feedback from him. He gave me feedback, and in his response, he also copied Dr. Den and Franz Lekubo. Can you see that on all of those emails that I'm requesting feedback about this case, Dr. Den is always, informed about all of these. And Franz was also informed about all of these. And then on the 15th of November, Simpiwe approached me and he said he will be meeting with Lieutenant Colonel Machiva. Apparently, Colonel Machiva now was going to be a new investigating officer of this matter. I think they changed Mr. Nama to Mr. Machiva. And he invited me in the meeting. And unfortunately, I indicated to Simpiwe that I can't join him in the meeting because we had a board meeting. On the same day, I informed Dr. Den verbally that Dr. Den, Simpiwe will be meeting with a certain Colonel Machiva in the office regarding this case to investigate the sender. And then Simpiwe also on the 16th sent an email to Franz Lekubo and Dr. Den to inform them that he will be meeting with Mr. Machiva and Franz can join Simpiwe in the meeting. I don't know what transpired in there because I was not copied in the responses. Then, on the 16th of November, I wrote a memo to Mimecast requesting them to create an account that was going to be managed by Simpiwe with super admin privileges in an effort to simplify and expedite the process of elevating to super admin rights on an ad hoc basis. Remember, sir, what was happening at PIC? From time to time, Dr. Dan or our guys from information security, they will come to me and request me a memo that I would have to write to Mimecast for Mimecast to always elevate, the rights, elevate the rights. And I decided, as we're defining our information security strategy, that we need to formalize this process, and we need a process that will be put in place to enable the organization and improve the turnaround times as well. Hence, I decided to write this memo so that our information security head in the organization would have these rights that will assist the organization whenever there's an investigation that needs to be done on Mimecast, and as part of him defining the information security strategy. And this is also in line with all the other systems, because all the other systems had super admin rights that were managed by technical people. So this was not something new or something strange, and it's good governance. It's what is practiced across the board. So I did that. So when Dr. Dan saw this email and the memo that I wrote to Mimecast, became very angry. He sent me an email to withdraw that memo immediately, and he called me as well, and he was very furious on the call. And I immediately called Simpiwe to inform his information security team to withdraw that memo from Mimecast. And I went back to Dr. Den and I indicated to him that I will be withdrawing that memo from Mimecast. Then we requested a meeting with Dr. Den, so that we can discuss the issues of super admin rights in the organization, because it is our responsibility, and in order for us to be able to manage our environment, we need to have these, rights. And those are, on page 30, those are the emails and the annexures that are referring to that. Then on the 20th of November in the morning, myself, Simpiwe, Vukile, and Den went to Dr. Den's office to discuss about these system admin passwords management and rights in the organization.
Sorry, can I just, before you move to that, I just want to ask that in terms of it, if we went back to page 30, where it is your senior manager, which I'm assuming is Mr. Maisela, sent an email to asking requests in relation to the access. And Dr. Dan, on your paragraph 136, says, I first need an explanation why this is necessary and the risks. And this is granting the super admin on an ongoing basis.
Yes, on a permanent basis.
On a permanent basis.
Yes, ma'am.
Given the evidence from Mr. Maisela that he had decided at some point to work with the police and access information, is notwithstanding the circumstances and the issues you're raising about Dr. Dan Machila's approach at this point in time, is this not something with hindsight that his caution was in fact warranted, given that although your granting to Mr. Maisela of access was in order for him to do his job, what he did with that authorization was something different, and that Dr. Machila's concerns, in retrospect, were perhaps valid? They might have been for different reasons from what you're saying, but were they not valid given what occurred in terms of accessing much broader information by Mr. Maisela?
Thank you, ma'am. So my approach to this would have been, it was very clear on the memo that I wrote, the risks that we want to mitigate in the organization.
I understand all of that. I'm just saying now, with the question of hindsight, does this not raise a question for you about a certain caution that needs to be there, given the outcome? because I understand what you were doing. You've made it very clear, and the whole questions here, and the motivations and the engagement. I'm just saying, given his concern here, where he specifically, his email specifically says, I first need an explanation why this is necessary and the risks. Given the outcome that we are now aware of, was this not something that, in fact, one would, with hindsight, say we need to relook at some of our approaches?
Yes, given the information that was given before the commission yesterday, I will agree with you.
I don't mean to interrupt you, and let's go back to where you were on 140, I think.
Then on the 20th of November in the morning, we finally had a meeting with Dr. Den to discuss about the password management. And when we got to his office, Desiree told us to wait for him in his boardroom. And when he came into his boardroom, there was myself, Vukile, Den, and Simpiwe, Den Mabuza, one of my senior managers. And he indicated that he would like to meet with me alone. And he actually, asked the 3 senior managers to leave the boardroom. And the senior managers tried to explain to him that, Dr. Den, the password management is our responsibility. And I tried to explain as well that the password management is their responsibility. I am an IT executive that is responsible for giving the strategic direction. I don't even manage, I don't even know any of these, system admin passwords in the organization. But he was adamant that they must leave the meeting. After they left the meeting, he immediately asked me to give him all the system admin passwords for all the systems at PIC. This was very strange. I told him that I cannot do that, because if I do that, I will be breaching IT governance and controls, and I will be exposing the organization to a high risk. He stood up and shouted and said, Vyogas, this is my organization. I own PIC. Give me all the system passwords. I told him that I do not even know any of these passwords as they are managed by the technical teams. And really, I begged him that we will be exposing the organization to a high risk. We cannot expose these system admin passwords. And when I was trying to explain to him the risk of doing what he wanted me to do, he continued to say that he owns PIC and he will do whatever pleases him. He then walked towards the door as I was sitting down and said, by 10 o'clock, all the system passwords must be in his mailbox. I then left the boardroom for my office, and I asked my subordinates to consolidate all the system admin passwords so that we can send them to the CEO. As the team was busy...
Can I just ask you a question on that? Given that all of these passwords give access to the various systems in the organization, right, if I understand you correctly, putting them consolidated in one email, would that not have created a real risk of having access across the board by anybody who could access that email?
Yes, ma'am. That was the risk that was raising to Dr. Den, that Dr. Den, I cannot do this. We are exposing. Remember, ma'am, we had information leaks in the organization. We do not know what was happening in the organization. And I was trying to secure the IT organization as a custodian of information systems and, IT systems in the organization. Now the CEO was just disturbing this whole plan of securing the organization and trying to expose the organization to a risk, especially when you send them via the email. Even if you were to send them via, a printed document, if you lose this document, you expose your organization. And mind you, with the leading investment house in Africa and ranked the 21st in the world, you expose, your information and the systems of such, organization to high risk. And that is uncalled for and against IT governance. So at around 9 o'clock that day, I received a call from Desiree. As the team was busy consolidating all of these passwords, Des said to me, Dr. Den wants these passwords as soon as possible. And I said to Des, the team is still busy consolidating them. As soon as they have been consolidated, I will send them through. I sent an email, as you can see, on paragraph 145 to Des. As the team was busy consolidating, around 9:25, I received a call from Dr. Den. I immediately went up to his office, and Des told me that Dr. Den was in his boardroom. When I got to his boardroom, he was with Mr. Christopher Polwane, and Mr. Christopher Polwane had cream PIC branded envelope. He took out a letter and he said, "I must sign that letter." I was shocked. What is this letter about? What is it for? And it was my precautionary suspension letter. And I asked them, why am I being suspended? And can they explain to me why am I being suspended? And Dr. Den said to me, "Vuyokazi, I am not dismissing you. I am suspending you. Sign this letter and leave this organization." I begged them, to give me an opportunity to at least go through the letter and to consult with my legal advisor so that I can respond to them. And he insisted that I must immediately sign the letter and leave the organization. And before I signed the letter, I took the letter from Chris and I put it in front of me. And I said to Dr. Den and Chris, "Dr. Den and Chris, look at me and look me in the eye. I am going to sign this letter now. And the moment I attach my signature in this letter, you will no longer be dealing with me. You'll be dealing with my God. And you'll no longer be dealing with my God only, you'll be dealing with my ancestors. And my God is very jealous of me. And the battle that you're starting now, Dr. Den and Chris, is similar to the battle that was between David and Goliath. I know, Dr. Den, that you have all the power in the world and you're dealing with a small ant that is Vuyokazi Menye, but I know that my God is going to deal with you accordingly." And I signed the letter and I said to them, "May the good Lord bless you." And I left them. After I left the organization, there were no charges, nothing whatsoever, as you can see on my precautionary suspension letter. And confused as I was, I left for home, sought legal advice, and on the 5th of December, I received a call from Mr. Christopher Polwane. And the call from Mr. Christopher Polwane indicated that he had sent me an email with my allegations. And the allegation that was on the letter was that me, as the executive head of IT, together with my subordinate Simpiwe Maisela, I have breached my duty of good faith towards the employer in that I failed to disclose, alternatively to timelessly disclose, that a criminal case of corruption has been registered and was being investigated by the South African Police Services against PIC's Chief Executive Officer, Dr. Daniel Machila. And this was very strange to me because I had given Dr. Den all the information that Simpiwe had given me, or every bit or every piece of information that Simpiwe had given me. And also the letter indicated that we will have our first disciplinary hearing on the 14th of December. And then when we arrived on the 14th of December, in the chambers, I was represented by Mr. Eric Mabuza and Advocate Ngokaitobi, but Advocate Ngokaitobi was not present on that day, on the first day of the hearing. Then Advocate Nazim Kasim called me and representatives to a boardroom on the side, not in the main, room where we were going to have our hearing. And he said, Vuyokazi, you are still very young, and it is clear that PIC does not want you, or the CEO of PIC does not want you in the organization. And he was, begging me to settle with PIC. And he said he cannot preside over this matter because it is clear that I am not, I'm innocent in this matter because this charge, it doesn't hold water, this charge, And I immediately became suspicious of the process that I was being subjected to, because how can a chairperson that has been hired by PIC be the first one, to approach me and request me to settle with PIC? And I stood still and I said, I am innocent. In fact, the words that I used was, I am as clean as a whistle. Advocate, take me through the disciplinary process. If I am guilty, let me be, let the right corrective measures be applied, against me. However, if I'm not guilty, take me back to work because I haven't done anything. I do not know why I am where I am even now. And this whole process is frustrating me. It's frustrating my family, and my health is being, affected by all of this. And the other, frustrating thing, Commissioner, is the fact that my reputation, my clean reputation, my unblemished record in the IT industry and in the whole country was being dented, and my image and reputation was being dented, young as I am. Articles I've given them as part of, the supporting documents that were being published by the media houses that the executive head of IT at PIC is involved in information leaks. And this is the industry that I'm in is an industry that requires, someone to have integrity. You cannot have someone who is a custodian of information technology to be involved or associated with information leaks, with hacking an organization, with all of these things that were reported in the media. And despite all of those things, PIC didn't say anything. They continued and allowed all of this negative media to report against my, good name in the industry, destroying me on a daily basis. And I said to Advocate Nazim Kasim, I am not going to accept any settlement agreement at PIC. Allow me to go through the disciplinary process. Then we went back, we convened, and both the legal teams of PIC and our legal team agreed with Advocate Nazim Kasim that we will postpone the hearing to the 18th of January. So we didn't sit on that day at all. Then we got to 18th of January. When we got to the 18th of January, they started with Simpiwe. And they said they will deal with my matter after they've concluded with Simpiwe. On the 18th of January, the matter, Simpiwe's matter was not concluded. Then it was postponed to the 11th of April. Listen what happens now, sir. We get to the hearing on the 11th of April. Instead of them continuing with Simpiwe's matter, I'm called again to discuss the same settlement agreement issue that I had refused on the 14th of February. And they beg me, Advocate Kasim tries to show me that I'm no longer needed in that organization. And I'm saying, what have I done? What wrong have I done for the organization not to need me? I've done all the good things in that organization. I've implemented, projects within a short space of time that could have not have been implemented in the organization. What wrong have I done? And Advocate Ngai Toby and Eric, they called me on the side. They said, Vuyokazi, we can fight for you. We know that you are innocent here. We can fight for you and go back to work. But the challenge is you'll be frustrated in that environment, and they will find one simple thing to dismiss you, and that is not right. That cannot be right, according to us. I still refused. Then Advocate Ngai Toby called my husband to beg me, My husband called me and he said, Vuvu, you're not going to get a fair hearing on this one. It's clear, that the PIC does not need you. The best thing is for you to accept the settlement agreement. And I was crying hysterically, And we went back. I told my legal team to discuss with the PIC legal team. They immediately came back to me. When they came back to me, they said PIC is proposing that they pay me a settlement of 24 months, salary, which is equivalent to, I can't recall equivalent to what, the 24-month salary. And then on top of that, they pay me a performance bonus of 5 months. So the total amount that I was paid by PIC is 7.250 million rand for the duration of 29 months. And that was divided into 24 months of the settlement and the 5 months of the performance bonus. And over and above that, PIC indicated that they will write me a reference letter indicating that there was never a misconduct that was committed by me against PIC. They also gave me that letter. And you know, the reason why I signed that, you know, agreement that day was due to the fact that my back was against the wall. I had high legal fees, and my health was deteriorating, and this whole thing was affecting my whole family. My whole family. It was a traumatic situation that I would never have wished even for my worst enemy on earth, especially knowing that I have done absolutely nothing, you know, to be where I am. So I signed the settlement agreement. One thing that I forgot to mention is that before we had our hearing, or Simpiwe had his hearing on the 18th, we received new allegations. I received an amended, you know, allegation indicating that I did not inform Dr. Den that there was a case of corruption against him in a statement that I did on the 13th of October. And yet I never did any statement, you know. So this, you know, the allegation was talking to something else that I was not even involved in, you know. So
Just a question. So you do say in 163 and 64 that your settlement was carried out not in keeping with the PIC policies. Yeah, is that correct?
yes, and the reason why I'm saying this was due to the evidence that was given in this commission of inquiry by the executive head of HR.
Yes.
When you asked him whether was this in line with PIC policies, and he said there is no policy that is in support of that. And I was actually shocked as I was, you know, listening to that. And why? Because he is the same person who signed this settlement agreement, and which policy mandated him to sign this settlement agreement.
Yeah. So it did flout the policies then?
Yes, yes. There was
Completely.
no governance process whatsoever that was followed in terms of this.
Okay.
And I wish to indicate, sir, that the reason why I am mentioning all of this information is that I decided that I am not going to keep quiet, because PIC executive directors have been silencing people that have been victimized in the organization by giving them these settlement agreements. And it is not right, and it can never be right. And this commission must assist us in ensuring that there is justice in PIC, there's proper governance in PIC, because things cannot go on like this. I mean, at the age of 40, they have destroyed me at the age of 40. There is not a single company in the country that wants to be associated with me because of all these media reports that have been, you know, published against us. And there is not a single company in the country that would want to associate with the CIO that has been associated with all of this. The 7.2 million rand that they gave me, it's a salary that I could have earned within a period of 2 years. You know, hence I am saying that the commission must make a determination about this. And one of the things that I would like the commission to make a determination about is to ensure that I am reinstated in my position of an executive head of PIC. And the commission must make a determination about the amount that was given to me, taking into consideration the pain and suffering that I went through, taking into consideration the legal fees that I had to pay, the huge legal bill that I had to pay, taking into consideration the fact that PIC executive head of HR signed, you know, a settlement agreement without any authority or following any governance processes that are supporting the settlement agreement that was given to me. And actually, this settlement agreement was used as another weapon of victimizing one of the young black females in the country outside of PIC. And I wish to indicate, ma'am, that we as the females in the IT industry, we're sailing against the tide. You know, the IT industry is a highly male-dominated environment, and for one to be at my level and to work for these companies that I'm working at and to deliver, these, quality services that I'm delivering as a black female in our country is a good thing. Yet the PIC saw it fit to destroy that, especially managing IT in the investment industry.
Ms. Menye, I see that you've come towards the end of your statement. What remains is your response to Ms. Sandra Beswick, the allegations that were leveled against you.
Okay. Maybe before I go there, I would like, to re-emphasize on page 38, paragraph 172 and 173, that this Commission of Inquiry is my only hope to restore my reputation, my dignity, and my integrity. I would like, without prejudice, to make the following humble request. I would like to be reinstated in my position of Executive Head of IT with immediate effect, that the Commission should make determination regarding how I should pay back the amount of 4 million rand that was paid to me by PIC, which is that 7.25 million rand before tax. The Commission should take into consideration the following when making a determination regarding paying back the aforementioned settlement amount: the salary that I would have received from May 2018 to date, and the net monthly salary that I was getting at PIC, including the annual salary increases that were applicable to staff, the 5 months incentive bonus that was included in the settlement agreement for my performance during the year that was taken into consideration. The legal costs that I have incurred because of the victimization and the inconvenience by the PIC, invoices from the attorneys can be obtained, and the proof of payment payments can be provided, to the Commission. Considerate amount for reputational damage, pain that I went through and suffering, and that action should be taken against the perpetrators of my victimization and those who concluded the settlement agreement with no delegation of authority and approved policy to support it.
Mr. Commissioner, I know we have a cut-off date of 12 o'clock. I hope we can finish in the next 5 minutes. Is it possible to have another 5 minutes?
Yeah, I think we can carry on until about 15:15 at the latest.
Thank you, sir. So furthermore, I would like to address the serious allegations that were leveled against me by a board member of PIC, Ms. Sandra Beswick, during her testimony on the 27th of February 2019, where she stated under oath that, I quote, "In my capacity as the chairperson of the ICTGC committee, I was vehemently opposed to the reinstatement of Ms. Menye because I did not believe that she was competent to head the IT department. Ms. Menye had presented a 1 billion rand modernization plan of the IT systems of the PIC through the installation of the SAP system. The ICTGC signed the resolution to submit the plan to the board for the approval, subject to certain conditions, one of them being a breakdown of costs. Such a breakdown was never provided. Dr. Machila stopped the process because of concerns that Ms. Menye's proposal could be part of state capture scheme. I had the same view." Those were the words that were uttered by Ms. Sandra Beswick in this Commission of Inquiry. I wish to indicate that these allegations were made without evidence in support of these allegations. I consider them baseless, defamatory, and damaging my reputation further. I also consider them as continuity of my victimization by PIC and denting my image and my reputation and my integrity. I wish to indicate that I was surprised by, I'm not going to read 176 and 177 because they are very clear. I was surprised by the assertions that were made by Ms. Beswick because she has never worked closely with me or engage me on a one-on-one basis. During my time as an executive head of IT at PIC, she attended about 4 ICTGC committee meetings with me, and she had never raised any issues of performance against me. Actually, Ms. Beswick was one of the people that was always commending my good performance, at PIC. And the whole of the ICTGC committee, they were very happy and excited about the work that I was doing at PIC within a very short space of time. I have also emails that I've included that came from my chairperson of the ICTGC committee, which is Dr. Manning, commending me about the good work that I have done at PIC. I would like to indicate that the person that I was dealing with often was Dr. Claudia Manning, who was the chairperson of the ICTGC committee. I wish to state without fear of contradiction and without prejudice that Dr. Manning was very happy and actually proud of my performance. She is on record commending me about the good work that I was doing at PIC. The emails that I've copied, below, that I've also provided as part of the evidence, bears reference about my performance at PIC. I need to indicate, say here that I joined PIC on the 17th of November, 2016. By 2017, on February the 8th, I had my business modernization strategy, which is the IT strategy, approved by the ICTGC on my very first presentation, and everyone was so excited about it. I've included my document in here. He even went to say that I had done copy and paste on the document. I never did that, and the entire committee was excited about it. There are minutes that we have provided in this. Joined on the 17th of November, 8th of February, my strategy was approved by the ICTGC committee of the board. Then, by the 10th of March, my strategy was approved by the board of PIC without any issues whatsoever. And the comments on these emails that I have included, they clearly state that they were very happy with my performance. I had written a good document. Hence, I'm surprised by what Ms. Sandra Beswick had indicated. Also, I want to indicate, I actually want to brag about this one. When I joined PIC on the 17th of November, PIC IT was in a crisis. It was in a crisis mode, and they had an office move project that was delayed, that we were supposed to have delivered by the end of March. And I did everything in my power together with my colleagues in IT to ensure that we deliver that IT move project. And from these emails that are written by Dr. Claudia Manning, he is actually proud of the fact that he got reports from the business. He even mentioned that in one of our ICTGC committee that he got reports from business that the only thing that was working at PIC in the office move were the IT systems, and everything was not working. She is on record indicating that, and it's written on these emails. And when she also spoke about SAP implementation and the 1 billion rand. I actually wish to state that that is untrue. There is not a single solution that has been indicated as part of my business modernization strategy. It is actually, concerning and disappointing that a chairperson of an IT committee of the board would not know that when you write a strategy document, you do not dictate systems. The systems are only dictated or informed after you have crafted the business requirements of the organization. Then you go out on tender. Then the industry will respond with the solutions that are supposed to be implemented in line with the business requirements to enable the business. In my strategy document, there is nothing whatsoever that is talking about SAP. And the 1 billion rand that she was referring to, it's actually surprising because there is absolutely nothing that talks about that. I have also submitted an IT costing which was submitted to all the relevant committees, which amounts to about 378 million rand over a period of 5 years based on the priorities of the business. And I really, it is shocking that an entire chairperson of the IT committee of the board will not know this basic governance process of when, after you've crafted the strategy, you identify the initiatives, you do the business process requirements gathering, you do the specification, then you go out to the industry, and that process is facilitated by supply chain in terms of going out to the industry. And in terms of, saying that she had issues with my performance, I also wish to state that without fear of contradiction, that the PIC had never had any issues with my performance. As a result, during the settlement negotiations, as I've indicated earlier on with my legal team, PIC paid me 1.5 million rand, which is equivalent to 5 months of performance bonus. And I really don't know where this issue of performance is coming from. I was shocked with disappointment when the PIC board member, Ms. Beswick, lied under oath to this commission of inquiry. All this misrepresentation was done to discredit me and link me to a state capture scheme with no merit whatsoever. I have serious reservations about these allegations, Chairperson, as I consider the state capture as the most egregious crime that is associated with high level of corruption in our country. It is therefore uncalled for a board member like Ms. Sandra Beswick to make such allegations with no evidence whatsoever, especially at this point in time in our country. And once again, I would like to state that I have not conducted any misconduct whatsoever at PIC or violated any PIC policy. I would like the Commission of Inquiry to take action against Ms. Sandra Beswick for her unethical conduct of perjury, lying under oath, in this commission, her continued victimization against me, defaming of my character and destroying my reputation without submitting any thread of evidence to support her testimony. And lastly, Chairperson, I would like to state that I reserve all my rights.
Mr. Commissioner, that concludes the evidence of Ms. Menye.
Can I just ask one question before she goes, Mr. Commissioner? The Commission heard evidence from Mr. Mayisela yesterday that he is actively cooperating with the South African police services in their investigation into criminal conduct by Dr. Dan Machila. Were you aware of that?
No, sir, I'm not aware of that.
I appreciate that this has been a very difficult and traumatic experience for you, and that much of your testimony has related to your experience. However, what I would like to ask our evidence leader and yourself is that there are probably quite a lot of questions that we would have in relation to some of the more technical side of the work, and that isn't really sufficient time to do that now, that perhaps we could ensure that should we require to have further discussions about some of the system issues and so on, that you would be available for that. Because I think that is something that in your testimony I would like to explore further, but it would warrant a sufficient amount of time rather than having sort of very quick question and answer. If that would be acceptable to you to come back on that basis, having heard all of the things around what has happened to you in particular.
Yes, ma'am, I will avail myself to take you through the technical nitty-gritties of the systems and the gaps that I identified at PIC and the measures that I had proposed to close the gaps so that we can enable the organization to achieve its strategic and operational objectives, in particular the client mandate.
We will also be happy to oblige, Mr. Commissioner.
Two quick questions. I just want to check, was there ever a time when you had private chats or talks with Simpiwe, with, about the case and the corruption charges, that people maybe suspected that besides sending the notes to Dr. Dan, maybe you are sort of having talks and chats about the corruption case?
No, sir, there was never any private conversations between myself and Simpiwe about the case all our conversations were always open, as indicated on the emails. And also on the SMSs that I sent to Dr. Den.
Next one is, part of our terms of reference is to find out how the leaks happened and why they happened, and finding out about James Noku, not really dealing with whistleblowers or trying to destroy them or whatever, but we want to determine how the leaks have happened and, you know, who was sort of responsible for that. Can you maybe, since you are here, give us some ideas about that?
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Am I clear?
I will not know how the leaks have happened, and I don't know who James Noku is. And what I can say is to avoid, there's a lot of processes that needs to be considered in terms of avoiding information leaks in the organization. I always say to my colleagues in the industry that there are 4 key things, you know, when you're running an IT organization to enable an organization to achieve its strategic and operational objectives to be considered. The first thing is process. The second thing is people. The third thing is technology. And the fourth thing is information. And you can buy expensive technologies and implement them and put in place, but if you do not educate your people on how to manage the information and how to take care of the information, that investment will be worth less, you know. And also, if you do not have the right processes in place to ensure that all this information that you're using in the organization, it flows effectively and be stored in this technology and disseminated correctly and classified, you know, correctly, then all of those things, they go together. So there's a lot of things to be considered in terms of avoiding, you know, information leaks in any organization or in any industry. But the 4 key things are people, process, technology, and information. And education about how to handle information is critical in any organization or in any entity. So those are the things, but I don't know who James Noku is, and I do not know, you know, how this information could have leaked. It could have been through hard copy documents, through emails, through taking pictures, or maybe a person just looking at information. You know, there's a number of emails that were circulated that we saw, so I really don't have an idea.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Mrs. Mania. Thank you for the time that you took and for agreeing to come and testify before us. You've given us quite a bit that we need to consider, and we thank you for that. But unfortunately, you know, our work is determined by the terms of reference relating to our appointment as a commission. And I'm here referring to what you say in paragraph 173 of your statement, requesting to be reinstated and so forth. We wouldn't have the authority to reinstate you. What we can do is make findings, or what we should do, what we are required to do is to make findings in accordance with the evidence that has been placed before us, and make our conclusions and make our recommendations to the President, who then decides what he wants to do with our recommendations and conclusions that we arrived at. I don't know, we are still to hear evidence, whether in fact we will be able to say at the end, you ought not to have been charged. I think if we are authorized to do that, we could only go that far, that there was no basis for you being charged. But we don't know now. We're still going to hear some evidence, and we don't know what our factual findings will be. So that will depend on our factual findings. And that's as far as we can go. And it's up to the President then to do whatever he wants to do with the report that we will write. So unfortunately, we wouldn't be able to say in the end, you should be reinstated in your position. Okay,
Thank you, sir.
but thank you very much for the evidence that you've given us.
It's my absolute pleasure, sir. Thank you.
Is that the day?
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. That's the day. We will reconvene on Monday at 10.
Yes. We will then, let's ask him in private. We will then adjourn until Monday. What will be the date?
It's the 11th.
11th. Monday 11th at 10. Thank you.
Well done.
Thank you.
Very well done. I'm sure things will work out. I'm sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Where are you going to travel?
I've got to join you. I've got to join you.
Okay. You're not going to be next week. It's fine. No problem. You've got the apartheid matter.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. Next week I'm not here.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
About the apartheid matter.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm rushing to Arm School. I've got a meeting with Dr. Dan and his fellow.
Oh, okay. Shut up.
Crossing, I think first one. Yeah. Exam is the shadow now.
Okay, no.